Hey everybody, my name is Patrick. I'm an iOS and web developer, and today I wanted to do a quick walkthrough just to show you how to do an API call using Swift and Swift UI. I'll be using an existing project of mine, mini bare bones Pokedex, to make a call to the unofficial PokeAPI and get back some essential data about our desired Pokemon that we type in. So let's not waste any time and just dive in. And as you can see, if I bring up the example of what I'm talking about in this iOS simulator, we have a mini Pokedex here. And let's just put in Pikachu. This. And so as you can see, we get the title back, we get the image back, and we get the abilities back. Now, how do we do this? The first thing that I wanted to mention really quickly is just that there's a PokeAPI that's an unofficial Pokemon API. They keep it very much up to date. And as you can see here, we're using this Pokemon endpoint here. And so it gives you the name, it gives you abilities, it gives you the forms, it gives you all kinds of stuff. But today, we're only going to be focused on the name, the ability, the image, and the ability, and I said ability. So that's about it. And so to make that happen, let's switch over to the Xcode here. And so if you see here in the content view, we make an API call after the user inputs something in the text field and unfocuses or hits return or whatever the we'll trigger this, usually one of those two. And so as you can see here, when that happens, when the unfocus happens, we're going to make an API call. We're going to put the desired Pokemon's name in the URL of the unofficial Pokemon API because it goes by either ID or name. And so then we're going to put that result that we get in this current Pokemon state. And so that's how you kind of see, their name and the sprite and everything else. So how does that work? How does this API call .makeAPI call work? And so if we hop on over to this PokeAPI model that I created, we're going to use that makeAPI call here. And we'll start from the top and we'll kind of go down and work our way down, and I'll show you how this all works line by line. So on line 37 here, we have make API call. We're passing in that URL string. We're making sure that we're telling Swift this is an asynchronous await type function. And we're going to say, if it doesn't work, we're going to throw an error. And finally, we're going to return this response data, which if you look up here, in response data, it's just an optional image and an optional set of data, which is the JSON response that we get back from the API. And so if we move down here, you see this guard let service URL variable. And if we set this service URL here to the regular string that we're passing in, which is just the Pokemon API URL, then the next thing we're going to want to do is kind of jump into this do catch block. And basically what this does is it says, hey, we're going to try to make this async await function work. If it doesn't, we're just going to print out some error and return nothing, right? And so that's why this is an optional. And so the URL session is kind of a singleton. So we declare this shared here so we can use this data function. And from the data function, we're going to just input as a parameter this service URL. And so this is just that URL object that we declared up here. And so we're going to say try await. And so this try is kind of related to the do. So do goes in and says, hey, we're going to try this. If this works, great. If it doesn't, we're going to go to the catch statement. But in this case, it's going to work. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to get this data back. And so this returns two things. It returns data and a URL response, but we're not going to worry about that quite yet. We're just going to worry about the raw data that we're getting back for this. And so then what we're going to want to do is declare this PokeData variable and say, hey, we're getting this raw data back. We want to decode that raw data into a format that Swift can read instead of just ones and zeros or a blob of data or whatever it comes back. It's some sort of data representation that doesn't help us put it in any sort of human readable form. So down here, we're going to use this JSON decoder that's built into Swift and Swift UI and Foundation and all that. And we're going to do another do catch. And we're going to say, hey, we want to decode this response. We're going to set it to this JSON response type. And it'll decode it into that JSON response type. And so we declare that up here. And so it's got the name of the Pokemon, the ID, the abilities, and the sprites. And I declared these kind of on the side here. I won't get too much into these, but basically they're just other JSON blobs that are nested inside. And so if I go back down to the decode raw response, we're going to say, hey, we're going to print this out just for the sake of it, and we're going to return it. And so basically here, if we go back up to our make API call, we're going to say, we're going to decode this raw response and set it to Pokedata. And we're also going to get the image, which I won't go over this. It's pretty much the same thing, making an API call to the URL that the Pokemon API gives us for each sprite. And we're going to just get the front default sprite here. So nothing fancy. And then we're going to return this in a structure that gives us the image of the Pokemon and the data, which includes the abilities and the title. And I think that's it, actually. We only really declared those. Oh, and the ID. And so if we run this, I can put a quick breakpoint there. And we're going to say, please enter a Pokemon, right? Oh, I got a couple of breakpoints I got to get rid of here. And so if we put in Bulbasaur, right, and click enter, we're going to see that it's going to make this API call. It's going to go in the do. And we're going to see that that all came back okay. And so we have the title, we have the sprite, and the abilities. And so if we try one more, Pikachu, for example, the same thing's going to happen. We're going to get the raw data, and it's going to come back after we decode it, of course. And so that's pretty much how to make a simple API call using Swift and Swift UI. And I'll put the code in the comments, the full code, just so you can see it. Thank you so much for watching.